This meeting will come to order at 1:15 on Tuesday, September the 21st. Dennis Freeman, Associate Pastor with Christ Community Church, will lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come before you. We want to thank you so much. First and foremost, for who you are and what you continue to do and have done for us. Thank you for your grace and mercies that are new every day. I thank you, Lord God, personally myself, for each board member here, Lord God, for each manager of a department, Lord God. I pray wisdom for them, that you would pour down your wisdom upon their life. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for the position you have them in. I pray, Lord God, that they'll use the wisdom that you've given them. They'll put their own desires aside, Lord God, to serve the people. Thank you so much for what you've blessed the district with over the last 100 years, nearly 100 years, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord God, for this time and this afternoon. I pray, Lord God, that your wisdom would flow in this room and your grace and mercy would be present. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dennis. Any actions to report in closed session?
No, Mr. President.
Approval of agenda?
Mr. President, before you approve that, we noticed that item number 5, which is adopt resolution for 2000-2002 revenue certificates of participation refunding, that should be an action item, not a consent item. So we would ask that that be pulled for action.
Okay. Presentations. Retirement certificate presented to Oscar Jackson, L. Jackson, for 36 years of service.
Can we vote on the agenda?
Oh,
Motion to approve the agenda. I'll second
there's a first and a second. Please vote.
And we're going to be taking we're going to reverse the order. We'll be taking Oscar after the other ones. Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public, this first service award, the certificate of recognition and service pin replica of the district emblem, are presented to Veronica Hernandez for 10 years of loyal and faithful service to the Imperial Irrigation District.
For 10 years of service, Wilfred Joseph Toxco, electrician journeyman in the Energy Department.
Oh, this is a water guy.
Oh, okay. Water Department. For 15 years of service, Sergio Duran, construction and maintenance worker in the Water Department. For 25 years of service, John Rodriguez, Water Division Coordinator in the Water Department. For 25 years of service, Pedro Torres Sanjero in the Water Department. For 35 years of service, Merlin Kidwell, Water Master in the Water Department.
I know that. I seem to know less now than I used to.
For 35 years of service, Jose Salazar, Survey Party Chief in the Water Department. Is there anyone else here to receive a service award and I did not call your name? Okay, that ends our service awards.
Okay, thank you. And now we do have a retirement certificate in honor of your retirement, Oscar L. Jackson. On February 1, 2011, actually, when he'll actually retire, Board of Directors, officers, employees of the Imperial Irrigation District extend to you our sincere appreciation for your 36 years of faithful, loyal, and dedicated service, your commitment to excellence in the performance of your position receiving and shipping checker, and your outstanding contributions to the operations of the district will remain always in our memory. May your retirement years be filled with rewarding experience. And it's presented today, the 21st of September.
I want to smile and cry.
Okay, this is a public comment time. It's a public meeting. At this time, you may address the board on items that are within the jurisdiction of IID, but not an item on the agenda. Those who wish to address the board should come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, board members. Jose Angel, Assistant Executive Officer for the Regional Water Quality Control Board in Palm Desert. I don't have any prepared remarks, but what I wanted to offer for the board's consideration are a couple of points regarding the regulatory TMDL program, Total Maximum Daily Load Program for the Valley. We have a proposal from your staff regarding implementation of additional measures to comply with the IID's obligation for the TMDL. We're reviewing the proposal. What we would like to do, if it's okay with you, we would like to come back to you at the next available public meeting and provide you with an update where we are in terms of the level of implementation and what additional measures, if anything, the IID needs to do to comply with its obligations under the TMDL program. Suffice to say that what we wanted to do today is for all of us to take a couple of steps back. We have a proposal from your staff. It is being reviewed. We'll get back to you in writing to your staff, and then we'll come back to you if it's okay with the board during a public forum so that various stakeholders can provide their perspective on what's going on. That way you can separate the wheat from the chaff. In a nutshell, that's what I'm offering for consideration. If it's okay with you, we'll get ready and come back before you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
Any more public comments?
Yeah, Kalen, Westmoreland. I'm here today on behalf of the Water Conservation Advisory Board. We're working on vegetation management and drain management. Back in August 24th, I believe, I asked your staff for budget figures for drain maintenance and vegetation maintenance for the last 3 years, 2008, 9, and 10. Hopefully, I was hoping that I would get those before our meeting on September 9th, so that the WCAB board could review them. That didn't happen. So on September 9th, I asked for the information again under a California Public Information Act. I'm still waiting on that information.
I know I signed the letter responding to that sometime last week. I could check with my office. I figured you have it. I know I did sign a letter responding to that
I don't
request.
really understand why it has to take a Public Information Act to get simple information. How can we help your board or you people if the staff throws up walls in front of us all the time? It's just not acceptable. I don't understand why it continues to happen. And I would hope that it wouldn't happen in the future. Are there any questions?
I have a question. I thought, Mr. Curtis, I thought some of this information had been given to Mr. Kalen. Do you have any comments on response to what he had to say? Well, why don't you come to the mic?
John Curtis, Water Department. I believe there was some information forwarded, but he wanted it in more detail, and that's why he went and asked for it through the Public Information Act. And that was forwarded to legal, and I believe they did forward that to Mr. Kalen.
Okay, but his request, he was given information on his request, but then he wanted much more detailed information.
Right. We gave him, I think, just a summary of it, and I think he wanted it in a little broken down, a little more detail, which we provided to our legal department.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Garber, you're aware of this, when they're going to get the information? When's your next WCAB meeting?
That's the second Thursday in October.
What I'm aware of is that there was a CPRA request, and I gathered the information from the Water Department, and I signed a letter sometime, I thought it was last week, sending it to Mr. Kalen. And that's about all I know.
And the budget of the weed management or vegetation management is not a problem? That's not
No,
part of the issue?
it was, in fact, it was extracts. I didn't spend a lot of time studying this, but it was extracts of different budget sections, as I recall. It was attached to a letter that we gave Mr. Kalen, because that's what he asked for.
I disagree. What I asked for was the budget figures, in-depth budget figures for drain maintenance and vegetation management. What I was furnished was the contract amounts paid to Einen Corporation for weed spraying. That did not tell me how much was spent on vegetation management. Mr. Curtis came to the meeting. We didn't get to that portion of our discussion, but from what I understand, he had a book of the last 3 budgets. However, our board was never furnished with a hard copy or electronic copy, and that's what I asked for. That's where we stand now. I have never been furnished with anything.
Dr. Brady, why is legal involved if it's just a budget, reviewing old budgets? I mean, they're...
Because whenever the district receives a request for information under the California Public Records Act, they want me to respond because there's legal issues. All I know is that a request under the California Public Records Act was forwarded to me. My office gathered what we thought was the responsive documents from the Water Department, and a letter went out last week. I don't know why Mr. Kalen doesn't have it yet. I could probably find out when that letter went out. I could probably, by the end of the meeting, get a copy of that letter and whatever was attached to it. I was
Well, then,
doing
so
my
my
job.
understanding that anytime the WCAB needs information or wants to discuss something, they got to go through the Public Information Request Act?
I can't
No.
answer that question. All I know is there was a public records request, and I was asked, and I normally respond to them. I collected the information and responded. Nobody told me about a WCAB meeting. I was just given a public records request. I gathered the information, and I responded.
Well, my question was, Dr. Brady, I mean, they have to
No.
go through this every time?
No, they don't. And I know it's frustrating for Mr. Kalin. The way our budget is set up, we don't have a section that says specifically, whatever the words you said, Al, about drainage management
Drain management
and
and vegetation management.
specifically, at least the numbers aren't rolled up that way. What we need to, and I thought John was developing or extracting the dollars so you could put together, so you could specifically see what the 3 years worth of effort was. And I did not review the response to the public records.
Okay. Mr. Brady, can you get that information from?
Al, I know that the last WCA meeting, Mr. Watson was there, and I know Mr. Curtis was there, and
Correct.
I know that the IID's been very responsive.
They have not been.
WCAB meetings, they send staff in there, the staff's there. I know even at the
Well,
Farm
on that
Bureau,
respect, yes.
even at Farm Bureau meeting last Monday, the staff was there from IID to answer questions that farmers had. So it's unfortunate.
But that's all good and fine. But if we can't get the information that we ask for ahead of time, far enough for the members to review, how can we advise you people?
Well, I've attended every meeting, every WCA meeting, I'm there, so it's the first time that you've had to go through a Public Information Request Act to get some information. I think all the other stuff has come forward when it's necessary.
No, not necessarily. The last time I had to do it was when I asked for information on the Eining contract 4 years ago.
I was on the AAC.
I can't remember if I was on it at that time, but you know, it was the TMDL IID committee that worked on the TMDL issues, and we had to go through that to get the information. So hopefully this doesn't happen in the future.
This does relate to issues that staff struggles with because we get requests from documents from the public. They are generally told to refer those as public records requests. They're generally told that if they give documents upon request to some people, but then require public records requests to other people, that's awkward. So I can see how they were erring on the side of doing it as a public records request. I was not at the WCAB meeting, so I don't know what happened in there.
Well, it seems to me that if the Water Conservation Advisory Board is sanctioned by the IID, and we appoint the members, and if they ask for information, it only makes sense for the district to provide the information so they can do their work and advise the board. It's not a big deal. You know, they ask for information, give them the damn information when they ask for it, in time for their next meeting. It's simple. Just do it.
All right. Thank you. Moving forward, any other public comments? All right, we'll move on to comments from the board. Director Mendoza,
No comment.
Director Abadi.
No comment.
I have no comment. Director Menville.
Yes, I'd like to ask Dr. Brady, I know that the Bureau named up to Reservoir after Mr. Brock, and I know
Right.
there was a lot of people involved that were helpful in that, other water agencies, so if you wouldn't mind, we get a thank you letter out to those people that participated, and ask Secretary Salazar to name that after Mr. Brock. I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, we'll do that.
And the other thing I want to ask is, Mr. Garber, we had we have an invitation to the opening of the Unit 3 on Dogwood on October the 6th. And I just wanted to ask, where are we at on the lawsuit with Mr. Morgan and Foster Feed Yard on the bonds on being able to go ahead and build that?
That lawsuit is still pending. There's not much going on with it right now, but it's pending.
Okay, that's all you have on that?
It's a writ action. We're preparing the administrative record. There hasn't been a hearing set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Hanks.
No comment.
Legal.
No comment.
General Manager.
Yes, Mr. President, members, I wanted to inform you that yesterday I wrote to the Bureau of Reclamation to advise its Regional Director, Lori Gray Lee, of the district's intention, as reflected in last week's revised annual water order, that we will be sending over 76,000 acre-feet of water to the Salton Sea by the end of this year. Now, this is consistent with the terms of the water transfer agreements with San Diego Water Authority, Coachella Valley Water District. This amount includes 35,000 acre-feet that IID is already obligated to release in order to mitigate the impacts of the sea under the QSA, but it also includes over 41,000, actually 41,250 acre-feet of additional mitigation water that IID will release early, 26,400 acre-feet from its 2011 obligation and 14,850 acre-feet for the first half of the 2012. Again, all of this mitigation water will be delivered to the sea this year. And I wanted to be clear, because we've heard comments in the industry and press. I want to be clear, this is not so-called unused entitlement water. It's entitlement water that's available to IID. It's that we determined that we can and should be used in this way as an appropriate and prudent response to, among other things, the uncertainty surrounding the QSA litigation. Now, this action will bolster the QSA Joint Powers Authority by actually saving the JPA over $6 million in mitigation reimbursement expenses for the up to and including the first 6 months of 2012. It'll also reduce the district's reliance on fallowing to meet its water transfer obligations in the same period. Now, finally, in keeping with the board's stated goal of taking on no more financial or environmental risk than the district bargained for when it became signatory to the nation's largest ag to urban water transfer agreement in 2003. I have a copy, I believe a copy is before you of my letter to Ms. Gray Lee, and there are copies, I think, available to the public over on the table. That's all I have to report, unless you have questions on that.
Okay. Does the board have questions? We'll move forward to consent agenda.
Move
Kevin.
to approve.
I'll second.
First and second, please vote.
Number 5's been pulled.
With number 5 being pulled.
Right.
Number 5 for action.
First item on the agenda is information, internal auditing, general matters.
Yes, I have one comment, and my section is going to be presenting a report on in the action agenda on revenue and billing, internal controls on revenue and billing. So that's coming up. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer your questions.
Are there any questions for the internal auditor? Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to water, general matters.
Mr. Villalone.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just a couple items on water use. We are down another 3,000 acre-feet from last Tuesday when we reported 215. We're projected to be under about 212,000 by the end of the year. It'll probably drop to some degree, but
So are we down, how much?
down to 212,000
212 by
as of
today?
this morning. Yes. As Dr. Beatty mentioned, we're also working with mitigation water, quite a bit of mitigation water. What we're trying to do is spread it out through the west side main, central main, and east high line, so it doesn't impact either capacity in the delivery off the mains or cause any problems in the drains themselves, in any one of the channels or the rivers themselves. We're running 519 CFS, quite a bit of water. We received some complaints about carryovers, but it's water we have to deliver. We're working with the farm community as much as possible to minimize their impact to their deliveries. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for water from the board? Moving on to energy, general matters.
I don't have anything right now.
Okay, moving on to briefing on IID. Does the board have any questions for energy?
There you go. This is concerned Mr. Garber. Mr. Garber, in La Quinta, I asked for a report. Would that be coming forward on the internal audits? On the meeting in La Quinta on the internal audits report on the Jackson substation?
You know, I apologize, Director Body. I didn't get it. I've been so busy, I didn't get a chance to talk to them. And I apologize. I will get it together.
I'll make it a habit.
You're talking about Polo Estates, and I stand corrected. I will get that together.
Moving on to item number 10, briefing on IID air conditioning upgrade program.
Dr. Koch?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members. My name is David Koch, the Energy Manager. Today I'd like to discuss some of the energy efficiency upgrades that the district is preparing or proposing to do on district facilities. This includes air conditioning upgrades, thermal energy storage units at approximately half of these air conditioning sites, upgrading the lighting at La Quinta headquarter building, including putting motion sensors in, and then installing small scale solar and vertical access wind demonstration projects, both at La Quinta and here at the El Centro boardroom. The district is encouraging its customers to adopt energy efficiency programs, but we're not using energy wisely ourselves. We have very old, inefficient air conditioners. Many of them are more than 25 years old. Our lighting, again, is very old, and in many cases, we don't have any motion sensors in the rooms. Motion sensors turning off the lights when nobody's there. We've been working with ICE or ICE Energy, and have gone through 106 of the air conditioners, or all the air conditioners, in the non-headquarters components. Since we don't know what's going to happen to the administrative buildings in Imperial, we've only looked at La Quinta and other facilities such as the generating plant that are owned by the district, but which are not going to be replaced at any time. So, for example, we're not talking about doing anything at Valley Center, which is not owned by us.
So, excuse me, Dr.
Yes,
Cook.
sir.
So those 80 air conditioners are where? Located where?
They're located in this building, the generating station, the La Quinta building, and then several of our own facilities throughout. And my favorite is at the fish farm, okay, where
Very good, because I was really concerned that these were going to be in the Imperial site.
No,
I was
ma'am.
about to start screaming. What about the new admin building?
There
Okay.
are none at the Imperial site, but by the way, this whole project has been done with Mr. Campbell's administrative group and myself, Brad Lucky, and yes.
You didn't spend $100,000 on an assessment
No, ma'am.
audit? Very good.
But we do know that the district cost for the identified air conditioners can be reduced around 35%. That the cost of replacing the identified air conditioners is approximately $340,000 with a payback of between 4.5 and 5.5 years, depending upon the bid
Are you
results.
able to apply for the rebates?
Since we're paying for it out of public benefit funds.
Because it's only $100 a ton. You went down on the rebates, you know.
Actually, you've asked me that
Yes.
question, and that's not quite true. We've gone down to $100 per ton on new air conditioners, but we actually increased it on early replacement of old air conditioners. Okay, you asked me that question, and I owe you an answer.
And replacements, it's replacements of air conditioners, it's $100 a ton from $140.
Okay,
You have to
I will
replace them.
check. I will check.
I mean-
We have a meeting to discuss the
Well,
power
it doesn't
supply
matter,
issues.
but when you replace an air conditioner, you're going to replace it with a new air conditioner.
But
and-
if you replace it early, say you have a SEER 9 that's still working, okay, then we'll give you more than if the CR9 dies and you have to go out and replace
So
it.
why would you replace an AC that's working? You wait till it dies and then you replace it.
But we would like people to replace it early when they get a better return on their money. So that's when we give them higher rebates.
With the economy the way it is today, you think people are going to go spend their money when they can still make the AC work for another season? Be reasonable.
Actually, I went for years without an air conditioner in my car.
And look at the result.
Damn point.
Yeah, look at the result.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, Director Mendoza, you asked the same questions that I asked at a staff meeting, and I think we're heading towards offering enhanced rebates because that is a great source for it stimulates the economy. At the same token, these are hard savings in terms of demand side reduction. So that's, I think, where we're going to be heading.
I look at it for the following year, and it encourages people to replace their air conditioners. You know, and when your AC goes out, it encourages them to buy a higher SEER number than a lower one.
I agree, ma'am.
And you save energy. It's whatever. Go on.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Cloak, this is being purchased under a SCAPA project or SCAPA entities?
The ice bears are. Now, ice bear is a way of creating ice during the off-peak period and then storing that ice and then using it for air conditioning during the on-peak period. Okay, so essentially it's just like the old air conditioners that were used in theaters and malls with just blocks of ice. And then you blow the air over that in order to cool. So what Ice Bear has done is come up with the first small units to be commercially viable. Now, their large-scale thermal energy storage has been used for a long time. Many buildings, including, for example, the Anaheim Utilities building, use very large thermal energy storage projects as a way of cooling down and reducing the air conditioner from that. So if you look at a load profile of a large building with thermal energy storage, it's actually higher during the on-peak period, during the off-peak period, and then it drops during the on-peak period as the thermal energy storage is kicked in, stays very low during the on-peak period, and then comes back up during the off-peak period. Now, for entities that have demand charges, thermal energy storage units are very economic and a very attractive way of shifting load from the peak to the off-peak period. Down here, where we don't have much of a on-peak demand charge, it's more difficult to sell the thermal energy storage units to our commercial and industrial customers because the economic savings don't really exist to the extent that they do in other parts of the state. But for us, putting in thermal energy storage both reduces our peak, it keeps us in compliance with some of the storage, electric storage requirements that the state has now passed. And it does save us a little bit of money, but it gets us moving towards shifting our load from the peak to the off-peak period. Now, these Ice Bear units, that is a SCAPA project. That SCAPA is trying to build a 20 megawatt virtual power plant with Ice Bear technology. In other words, create 20 megawatts of interruptible load. We're looking at 50 units for roughly 500 kW to see how they work. The cost of these is approximately $1 million for the 50 units, roughly $20,000 each. They do have a slight reduction in our overall cost, but the majority of our savings are going to come from replacing the air conditioners themselves. That the air conditioners, and I wasn't kidding about the fish biologist building. That air conditioner was put in 1973. A lot of our air conditioners have been in since the late 70s, early 80s, and we haven't gone through a systematic attempt to replace any of the inefficient air conditioning that we have out in the system. So what we're proposing here is to both replace these identified 86 units plus buy 50 of the Ice Bear units as part of the SCAPA project and move forward on that. Now, we are not going forward today with anything more than requesting that the board authorize an RFP for the 86 AC units. Okay, that we're going to bring back an MWA for the ice bear and the ACs once we get the cost back and can come back with a actual identified savings for these two technologies. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, that ice bear units, we'll be using some of that 25 million we have at SCAPA to purchase those, right?
No, sir. I had actually budgeted for this as part of our power supply budget. Although it seems that it now, because it's over $5,000 per unit and we will own it, it is a capital project and will probably be paid for out of our capital budget. But it was not, we're not using any of the SCAPA monies for it.
Why not? I mean, it's been sitting up there for years, just sitting there. Why not use it? Why should we finance something like this when we got money sitting up there?
Look, can I bring that back when I come with the final
Yeah,
RFP
we're
as a
on, this is
recommendation?
informational at this point. We're going to bring back an answer
Bring it
on,
back
on
to the
those.
explanation with the MWA?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dr., where do you plan to install these units, more or less?
Again, primarily at this building for sure, for several, so that people could see what they look like. Primarily at the generating facility and La Quinta.
Okay.
Mr. Koch, what are you going to do with the old AC units? Are we going to give them to maybe a third world country, or are we you throw them away, or
Junk 'em.
I would think we recycle. They're scrap.
They're scrap.
Salvage.
Yeah, I don't think a 30-year-old air conditioner has much of a market value. I don't know. That's going to be Mr. Campbell's. I had not considered that.
Yeah.
Just scrap them.
That's all.
or would we give them to Mexico or somebody?
Now, this is an example of an ice bear unit here, how it works. The ice bear unit is actually attached through little cooling piping to the air conditioning unit. During the day, the ice bear unit is creating ice in this portion here. At night, then, during the night, the ice is created. During the day, then, the ice is used to create cooling, which turns off the compressors in the air conditioner and reduces demand on the system.
There is some question about whether these will work ideally in this climate. I think that issue has come up, and I think this is in a way, it's a bit of an experiment to see how efficient they are. There have been some concerns, and we think it should work okay, but that's why we're starting slow with this.
Do you plan to insulate the container because of the heat?
It actually is insulated already. These are designed where many of them are put on roof units, such as these here, in order to, they're fine. What Mr. Jain refers to is here, with our high temperatures 24 hours per day, it's difficult to get enough tons cooling. We're cooling hours out of these. Are we going to get 2 hours of cooling per day using these? Are we going to get 4? Are we going to get 6? These are designed to give us at least 6 hours per day so that we can essentially shut them off between 1,300 and 1,700 each day. That's what they're designed for. We will find out. The worst that happens is instead of getting from 13 to 1,700, we may get from 1,330 to 1,630, 1,900. We may get a half an hour less in either direction, but we believe that they are going to perform as advertised, as Ice Bear designed them, Ice Energy designed them. And these are being put out through the other SCAPA entities. Burbank is far and away the furthest of these. It has created its own small virtual power plant where they can turn these on. And each of these can be controlled over the internet. So you can come on and turn them on or off as you desire. But Burbank has gone out there. The other cities are moving forward with this.
What about the maintenance? Are they fairly easy to maintain?
The maintenance costs for the first year is included in this. Ice Energy, under contract with SCAPA, will maintain these at a cost of, I believe it's $350 per year, so we'll have roughly $17,000 per year in ongoing maintenance costs. Should one break down at any time, we can identify it over the internet, and then Ice Energy will send out a person to fix it immediately. I think by immediately, within 72 hours. But at the same time, that just means that the air conditioner would be functioning without the ice energy, without the ice bear functioning. So a person, or us, more importantly, would not actually lose air conditioning. You would just lose the demand reduction effect of the ice energy unit.
Okay.
Now, as I said, we've budgeted in the power supply budget all $340,000 for the AC upgrades and for the ice bear energy storage. What we're going to do is issue an RFP for the 86 air conditioning units. The AC units must be compatible with the ice bear units. All the major air conditioning companies now put out that type of a unit, so it's not anything surprising. But the ice bear units will be purchased under the SCAPA contract. And so the only thing we'll be putting out is the 86 air conditioners here. So there's going to be approximately $350,000 plus labor, a large RFP to air conditioner vendors in the valley in the next 6 to 10 weeks.
Are you going to separate the AC units from the labor, or are you going to have them bid both labor and AC units?
My guess is we're going to ask for an all-in price. Mr. Campbell is shaking his head yes, so we're going to ask for an all-in price for all 86. Okay. Now, that is just one part of what we're doing. Another thing that we're doing right now is upgrading the lighting at the La Quinta building. The lighting has not been updated since its construction back in 1991. It's old and inefficient technology, and we don't have any motion sensors in the building. We've gone out and done a number of RFPs already. The cost of upgrading the entire facility is about $75,000. The payback is less than 3 years on the investment. So that we're going forward with is just part of our O&M. We're also going to be putting out a 1 to 1.5 kW vertical wind turbine both here at La Quinta and El Centro. The cost is around $20,000 each. The payback to the district is about 15 years. It's 15 years on the 1.5 kW and about 20 years on the 1 kW. But generally, if a customer were to install this, they would get a payback in about 7.5 to 8 years because they could take advantage of tax credits and rebates that we don't have the advantage to. Here's an example of one vertical axis turbine. This is a 1 kW turbine. I'm thinking that this would be a perfect one for right out here in front. Here's an example of one that we're looking at for the El Centro facility. This is a 1.5 kW, I'm sorry, for the La Quinta facility. This is a 1.5 kW unit. Only difference is that La Quinta has slightly better wind than we do right here. This is kind of a sheltered area, and so a smaller, higher facility like this would attract more attention. We're also looking at putting 10 to 20 kW of solar both here and La Quinta. Mr. Lucky is working with us on the design right now. We'd like to have it, it's much easier to make this visible at La Quinta than here. We're looking at putting it on the parking structure or on this side of the building against the wall or on the roof here. We'll spend somewhere in the order of $50,000 to $100,000 each. We're not doing this for any trying to be fabulously all solar. We're trying to do it as something that's visible and is part of what everybody can see coming in and out. But this will also be used as the beginning of the district's community solar project. That at this point, we're going forward with the concept that people can purchase solar away from their facilities, away from their home or business, but start buying into solar facilities. Okay. We'll also at this point be entering into, or be building customer information centers both here and at the La Quinta facility that's going to provide energy information, energy efficiency information to customers, ideas of who the various vendors are, and actually have a way for our customers to come in, as they come in, to finally get some energy information. Of these, the public benefit funds are going to be used for the lighting upgrades, the PV projects, and the wind turbine demonstration projects, or about $300,000, $315,000. And if there's any other questions, and we've already begun the lighting, solar, and wind projects.
One of the wind, if you go back to the, go back. That looks like a sculpture. That's a beautiful piece.
It costs about $7,000 and about $10,000 to install, because there's so much lift.
They're very pretty design. Very nice.
Yeah, also chops onions.
Yeah. This is more beautiful than some sculptures that cost thousands of dollars. That's a very nice looking piece.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Koch? Thank you.
This is information.
Yep. Moving to review major work authorization, 6725 Avenue 58 substation.
And into the breach is Mr. Carlton King on this.
Good afternoon, President Sanchez and Board of Directors. Carlton King, Assistant Manager, Energy in La Quinta. I'm here to present two MWAs for the La Quinta Division. Mario Escalera is out of town on business, so I was asked to step in. The first one is P6725. It's a new underground circuit going to be called the N110 out of the Avenue 58 substation there at our headquarters at La Quinta. The project scope is to involves the implementation of new underground circuit N101, N110 out of Avenue 58 substation to split the circuit N101 and the installation of approximately 7,000 feet of three-phase single 750 MCM underground cable in an existing conduit system in the city of La Quinta. The total cost of the project is estimated to be $414,885. The implementation of the new circuit N110 will split the service area of circuit N101, one of the longest circuits of the Coachella Valley. This implementation will reduce the number of customers affected and the patrolling time when outages occur. It's a very long circuit, and when we have problems, it just takes an extended period of time to find the problem. This new circuit N110 will improve the operation flexibility and load transfer capabilities, making strong ties for backup purposes during emergency conditions. This new circuit will create strong ties between Avenue 58 substation, banks 1 and 2 also. As you know, the substation is right there behind the back of our headquarters there in La Quinta on Avenue 58. It'll start at the substation, and it will start on the south side of the Avenue 58 substation and require approximately 7,000 feet of three-phase single 750 MCM cable to Monroe Street in an existing conduit system. The conduit system was put in by developers when they built next to our substation and developed that area up to Monroe. This project is fully budgeted in the amount of $414,885. This estimate includes a contingency of $37,716. Funding was allocated in the 2010-11 approved capital budget plan, page 18, line 4. As a provision of this MWA, if costs increase as a result of design completion and final construction review, the project team will come back to the board for approval for adjustments to the approved amount. On the evaluation matrix, this one rated at 12 out of the 29 projects with a score of 114.77 points.
And
You're going to jump right to the next one too as well?
Yeah,
I
and
can.
You'll bring this back at the
Right.
next meeting for
Yes.
approval.
Yeah, just go ahead right into the next item.
Mr. Carlton, before you leave this one,
Sure.
on page 5 or 63, the IID inspector, 58,000. You take 10% of that, that adds into the contingency. It makes it a pretty good chunk. What's driving the cost of that?
What was your question again?
The IID inspector on the construction estimate?
If we have a contractor do the work, we have an IID employee that's there daily when they're constructing. And this is a pretty intensive construction timeline, so it adds up pretty quickly. This will be bid out for bids, so there'll be an outside contractor probably doing this work.
How many days are we looking at on the contract?
Just have to go back to your.
Construction is from 10.
45 days.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
The next NWA is P6732. It's reconductoring approximately 3,600 feet of 1/0 ACSR and number 6 copper of overhead conductor circuit J021 at the Mecca substation in Riverside County. The purpose of this capital project consists of upgrading approximately 3,600 feet of the J021 out of the Mecca substation from an existing number 6 copper and 1/0 ACR conductor to 397 all aluminum conductor using existing pole infrastructure. Total cost for this project is $254,410. Upgrading this circuit will create stronger ties for backup purposes during normal and emergency conditions. And this project will improve customer service reliability and operation flexibility of the distribution system. Completion of this project will bring circuit into compliance with IID overhead standards and California General Order 95. As you can see, this is located right there in the little town of Mecca. And there's the two items there where the upgrade is going to take place. This project is fully budgeted for the amount of $254,410. This estimate does not include a contingency, does include a contingency of $23,128. Funding was allocated in the 2011-2010 approved capital budget plan, page E10, line 4. As a provision of this MWA, if costs increase as a result, we will come back to the board for approval. And this project on the matrix is number 23 with a total points of 104.13 points. Questions?
Any questions?
I have one. Following Director Hank's question on the IID inspector, this is a lower cost project, and the cost for the inspector is more than the previous project. Why is that? The other one was 38,000, this is 48,000.
It's 58.
Oh, it was 58?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You must have a typo there.
I was trying to do it from memory. Never mind. You'll bring this back?
Yes.
The next meeting for approval? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will move on to action, governance review of internal controlled revenue and billing audit report.
Ms. Williams.
Good afternoon, directors. We are presenting our internal controls billing audit report. In formulating our audit plan, we considered the results of the SOX risk assessment previously presented to the board in March 2009 and recommendations made by Moss Adams, the external auditors. During our fieldwork, we reviewed the billing unit's billing processes and related policies. We also tested the effectiveness of current internal controls and automated applications. This report outlines our observations as it relates to existing and non-existing formal standard operating procedures, segregation of duties, and internal controls. The Energy Department processes both water and energy billing. At this time, the department does not have complete written standard operating procedures. Personnel in the Energy Department have reported that they are currently in the early stages of developing various SOPs. We recommend that the Energy Department's billing unit continue SOP development and implementation efforts. Written SOPs serve as a resource to the routine training of employees and to promote consistent processing during permanent and temporary personnel changes. We further recommend that existing and newly implemented SOPs be readily available to district personnel. Responsible personnel have accepted both recommendations, and in their response state, staff is currently in the process of developing over 80 section-related SOPs with a projected completion date of January 2nd, 2011. As previously stated, the Energy Department prepares and processes billing for the Water Department. All water consumption activity and water billing transactions, including customer payments received, are recorded in TruePoint. Once a month, responsible personnel create and transfer a data file containing accounts receivable information recorded in TruePoint to SAP. Since the installation of TruePoint, there have been unforeseen issues personnel have had to contend with in order to improve the accuracy and the efficiency of this data transfer. Currently, a written SOP documenting this function does not exist. We recommend responsible personnel design and implement an SOP for accounts receivable information migration that includes data quality validation. Responsible personnel accepted this recommendation and project a completion date of January 2nd, 2011. We reviewed segregation of duties in this section of key processes. Common established internal control structures rely on assigning certain responsibilities to different individuals in order to segregate related tasks. The flow of transaction processing and related activities should be structured so that the work of one individual is either independent of or provides a check on the work of another. This arrangement reduces the risk of undetected errors and serves as a deterrent to fraud. We identified areas where such structures could be improved. Currently, a number of personnel working in the billing unit have full access to customer master data and account management functions. In addition, the same personnel are authorized to record payments, reverse payments, and backdate payments. We also determined that section employees have full access to their own accounts and the accounts of immediate family members. This access includes the ability to post transactions and make changes to their master billing accounts. SAP R3 currently has the capability to flag employee accounts, but does not have the ability to monitor controls related to this type of activity. We recommend responsible personnel review current segregation of duty structures, define acceptable risk, and design and implement automated monitoring tools for employee accounts. Responsible personnel accepted these recommendations. Management will direct staff to form a committee. The committee will focus on critical risk mitigation, and access to employee accounts. Based on committee recommendations, a plan will be implemented by July 1st, 2011. We requested a copy of the unit's SOP that guides rate changes. The unit does not currently have a formal written process. While the department does complete a number of quality control processes typically found in a formal SOP, such practices are not documented or consistently applied. Responsible personnel involved with these processes periodically test for billing accuracy, but do not keep records of the test results. Energy and water rate structures within SAP R3 and TruePoint are vital to the district's revenue stream, and therefore associated controls are especially important. We recommend personnel design and implement an SOP for new or changed rates from board approval to production box. Responsible personnel accepted our recommendation and have a projected completion date of January 2nd, 2011, and to be further coordinated with support sections. This is a summary of our report included in today's agenda. The enclosed report provides further details of our observations. Are there any questions?
Will you follow up to make sure that the recommendations that have been accepted by management are being fulfilled so that when, like for instance, January 2nd, 2011, they are incorporated into our policies and so forth, and then you come back and report to the board?
Yes, we will make sure that they are included in our quarterly report of recommendations.
Or that they are implemented?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, the last paragraph on page 4, what did you mean, information interruption?
We've made, first of all, we requested a lot of information from this section and unit. And they were very cooperative and they provided that information. There have been a couple of reports that we requested that they've had difficulty putting together for us, and they're working on them. They've promised to deliver them hopefully within the next couple of weeks, and we will continue our scope of work related to those reports.
Okay, and on page 3, you mentioned you recommend implementation of preventive and detective automated monitoring tools. Are you talking about something that hooks into our SAP system, or?
Correct.
So,
most data processing software programs have those built into them. I don't know if our SAP currently has them and we just haven't turned them on, or if it's something that completely needs to be, from scratch to started from scratch. But most of the time, they're already built into a system, and this is something that we're bringing forward that does need to be looked at.
Are there any questions from the board?
You need to acknowledge receipt.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make
Is it first?
I'll second her motion.
There's a second. Please vote. Moving on to adopt resolution of support for the Imperial
Thank you, Mrs. Williams.
Integrated Regional Water Management Plan.
Hi, Tina Shields from the Water Department. You have before you a resolution of support for the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan process. Obviously, you all have encouraged us to move forward in this effort last September when you accepted the draft IID plan and asked us to initiate this process in order to provide the benefits that a regional plan provides from a funding perspective to the different water agencies, but also to gather input from the community on the various alternatives identified in the IID plan. This is just a formalization of that. We're asking all of the participants in the regional planning process to adopt this. My understanding is, and Andy can speak to this, that Imperial County adopted this earlier today. In order to have an official IRP in the eyes of the state, you have to have 2 agencies with water authority, which would be the county and IID, and then a 3rd agency, which would be any of the cities or water special districts. So once we have those 3 agencies on board, we can become official and go through the process to publish a notice of intent and check all of the state boxes. And then, of course, all of the other cities we're hoping will jump on board for this too. So this is just the written official authorization for that.
Are there any questions from the board? If not, someone can make a
I move
motion.
to approve the resolution of support.
Second.
First and second, please vote. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Moving on to energy schedule, public rate hearing dates to receive input on a proposed net metering rate.
Good afternoon. I'm here today to ask the board to establish 2 rate hearings, one November 16th in La Quinta and the other one November 17th in El Centro, both beginning at 5 p.m. State law requires utilities to establish a just and reasonable compensation for net surplus customer generators. The compensation rate shall not result in shifting costs between net metering customer generators and other bundled customers. Compensation for the net electricity production shall be based on the average avoided cost of generation and purchase power. The hearings would allow us to go through the process to establish those rates and make them effective January 1 of 2011 to be in compliance with state law.
Are there any questions for Greg?
Move for approval.
First, here a second.
I'll second.
First and second, please vote. The last item is acknowledge, oh, there's one more for that.
Next to
Acknowledge
last.
receipt of July 2010 financial report.
Greg?
Yes, I'd like to talk about 2 pages. I'm on page 129, which is the water income statement. Both water and energy sales are down this year. And although energy sales are down, both departments have done an excellent job of controlling their costs. So when we prepared our 2010 budget, we expected debt coverage to be at 2.29 times. Right now, our forecast is at 3.16. So the higher the coverage, the better it is for the district. And then on the energy on page 131, for whatever reason, one of our columns got collapsed. I've copied a new page and put it behind me on the table, and I believe the board has been distributed the revised copy. Same thing on megawatt hours sold. We're forecasting to be down about 6% for the year. It's on line 1 of that page. Although that's down, our costs, especially our power supply costs, are down considerably. So when we did our 2010 budget, we were expecting coverage of 3.14 times. Right now, we're forecasting at 4.31 times, which is higher. And then on next month, I would propose that I will talk about the capital projects in more detail.
Is that because it's not as hot this year, or is it because there's no growth?
I think it's a combination of both of them. It hasn't been as hot as it was last year and prior years, and growth certainly hasn't been as great as it has been in prior years.
I move for approval of the receipts.
First, I need a second.
Second.
Please vote. Thank you, Greg. Moving on.
He's
Greg's
got
it.
number 5 as well. Last item.
I don't have a formal presentation on the proposed financing, but I'll do a quick summary. And then we have outside bound counsel Don Hunt from Fulbright and Jaworski who needs to provide some statements to the board. What we're proposing to do is refund our 2000 water bonds and a portion of our 2002 water bonds. It'll take out about $27 million of bonds that we currently have outstanding. The present value savings will be, as of today, and this goes back and forth as the market changes, is $3.3 million with a PV savings rate of 12%. We had our rating agency presentations last week. We hope to get a rating here shortly. And we're scheduling to price the bonds on the 30th still, with the closing around the 14th of October. Are there any questions on the summary of the financial aspects of this deal?
Go ahead.
Dr. Broken, what's left in the old 2002 bonds?
There will be approximately $15 million of bonds that will be outstanding in the 2002.
Well, it's favorable to refinance. Why don't we just do the whole thing now?
Well, they're not callable right now. Not all of them are callable, so we'll have to wait till, I believe they become callable, I think, July of 2011.
That's the other, the remaining 15?
That would be remaining
date?
15, yes.
Before the board moves forward on this, I just want to make a couple comments for housekeeping purposes. The following documents are available on the table to the public. They were also provided to the board at the time that the
Craig, don't
agenda.
sit down, because I have a question for you afterwards. I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay.
Garber, go on.
These are the following documents that make up the agenda package on this item. There's the board resolution. There's the preliminary official statement. Indenture of trust. And continuing disclosure certificate. And 2 escrow agreements. Those documents were posted with the agenda on our website by Thursday, September 16th. They were also made available to the public for review at the general manager's office at that date and since that date. Those same documents are available to the public now and have been provided to the board since September 16th. Some of the documents are identified as draft. They actually may be final documents when they're signed. And I think as well, Mr. Hunt can make a few comments about the form of the documents. I just want to clarify for the board that when they approve these documents in resolution, they are approving some potential changes within minimal parameters to the documents, and I want Mr. Hunt to clarify that. And I also ask the secretary that her minutes reflect the comments that I just made, that those comments be contained in the minutes.
Would you repeat them for the secretary?
She'll hear it. She'll hear it next week.
It's being taped.
Mr. President, members of the board, Don Hunt with Fulbright and Jaworski, the city's or the district's bond and disclosure council. The documents that have been presented to you for approval, authorizing the issuance of the not to exceed $30 million of water system refunding revenue bonds and the execution and delivery of an indenture of trust, escrow agreements, one for the 2000 certificates refunded and a separate escrow agreement for the 2002 certificates refunded, a bond purchase contract, a preliminary official statement, and a continuing disclosure certificate, all in substantially the forms presented at this meeting, with such additions thereto or changes therein as the officer executing those documents may require or approve. The board's approval of the bond purchase contract requires that the true interest cost on the bonds shall not exceed 4.5% per annum, and the underwriter's discount for the purchase of the bonds shall not exceed 0.75%, 0.75%. The approval by the board of the preliminary official statement relating to the bonds authorizes the general manager or the chief financial officer of the district to certify to the underwriter on behalf of the district that the preliminary official statement was deemed final as of its date within the meaning of Rule 15C212 promulgated under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, except for the omission of certain pricing, rating, and related information as permitted by the rule. The board approval of the financing documents in substantially the forms presented is the same process followed by virtually all public agencies in California. Because rating information, actual interest rates, principal amounts by maturity, specific maturities of existing certificates to be refunded, redemption provisions, and related matters are often not known until after the date the board approves the documents or until the date of sale of the bonds. It is valid and legal for the board to approve the parameters of the bonds and the authorizing documents and to delegate the approval of the final terms and details to district staff. This also allows for correcting typographical errors, non-material edits, and corrections of and updates and information relating to the district and the water system as necessary, contained in the preliminary official statement. Once the bonds are sold, issued, and delivered to the purchasers, our office will provide the final execution version of the documents approved by the board, marked to show all changes made since the drafts are in front of you. So you'll be able to see every change that's made to the documents. It's primarily filling in blanks and putting in the final pricing information. But this is necessary because at the time of the pricing, it happens very quickly, and the district has to decide to approve the sale of the bonds so that the underwriter can notify their purchasers that they in fact have bought bonds. So it's not something that we can wait a day or two or three to come back to the board to approve the final documents. That's why you approve in substantially the form.
Are there any, in your experience, has there been a significant change in the interest rate to warrant you have to come back to the board, in your experience?
Yes, over time, I have seen situations where rates were fluctuating fairly significantly. And the reason that you do it this way, where you authorize your staff to accept the final terms, is because you might have a particular day where you plan to price, and the market might not be favorable that day. And because of the way you're doing it, they can tell the underwriter, let's wait until tomorrow or the next day and see how things are. And you have the ability to pick the day you're in the market. And that's the benefit of being able to do that. If you had to have all the terms identical, you'd go out on a specific day that you were meeting and approve it all at the same time.
Get the flexibility to.
You have more flexibility and a better chance to get better rates.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Are you satisfied that you've had full disclosure?
Yes, sir.
And does this pretty much, once you sell these bonds or the refinancing, does that remove all liability associated with disclosure of the previous bonds?
The offering document for these bonds is only for these bonds, and we will be providing a letter to the district that, in our opinion, there is no material omission or misstatement, but it does not go to any other previous bond issues. Each bond issue stands alone with respect to the official statement that's delivered in connection with that sale of bonds.
Okay, but basically the other bonds will be closed off then?
Well, they were, generally closed off at the time they were delivered.
Okay.
Dr. Brady, have you looked at all these papers and documents and draft documents?
I have not read through every one of them, no. But I've been provided this. I've read the preliminary official statement and many of the technical data that's contained in it.
A lot of them might be in draft forms. What's your recommendation?
My recommendation is for approval.
All right.
I move for approval for Resolution 25-2010.
It's a resolution to go roll call?
And approve the series of documents listed as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, a first and a second.
Second.
Discussion. Please vote.
And before we adjourn, I had a question for Mr. Broking. You were going to come back and give us an update on the ECA. When is that going to be?
This is going to be scheduled the third week of October.
Third week of October?
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Okay.